Hey everyone, it's Darren. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about date functions in Excel. Uh, Excel has a lot of functions that make it really easy to work with dates, and they tend to work pretty well. There are some serious limitations to them, and they also sometimes do things that are just really, really stupid, and you're going to wonder why is it doing this to me? And we're going to try to explain why that's happening also. Before we get started, when you're working with dates, or same thing applies to times really, uh, especially if you start doing anything odd, Excel is going to try its best to format stuff the way it thinks you want it formatted, because most of us have stuff set to auto format. If suddenly your dates turn into integers, or your times turn into decimal numbers, or yeah, you just get really weird formatting. Just remember, you can always just go back and reformat the cells to what you want. It's just Excel trying to figure out what you're trying to do, and sometimes Excel just gets it wrong. Uh, so we've got a few dates here, and these are all pretty typical dates. Uh, so let's say that I want to add a number of days. So I'm going to add 6 days to A1 equals A1 plus 6. That's it. Works easy. So I want to subtract 10 days. Well, let's subtract 100 days equals A1 minus 100. Okay, no problem. Everything works exactly like you'd expect with adding and subtracting. Um, and that's good. That makes it really easy to do, days into the future, days into the past. I have a date. I know it's going to take me, 6 days of work to get this done. I had 6 days, piece of cake, right? Okay. So what about the time between dates? We can do that too. There's a couple of ways to do it. The easiest way, honestly, is to just subtract them. So if I wanted to do equals A1 minus A2, and that tells me there's 491 days between those, and A1 minus A2 uh, is negative because A2, of course, is in the future from A1. There's another function that you can do this, which is days, which is equals days, A1, A2, and you get the same thing. And again, it's negative because the end date here, if you look at the function, first one is end date, second one start date. It's just because you're going into the future. So, so that's between days. Well, what about work days? What if I am trying to calculate days on the job and I only want to count Monday through Friday? Well, I can do the same thing. So if we do equals days of, say, A2, let's do A1, A2. There's 491 days between those. But what if we do work days? Equals work days of A1, A2. Sorry, I wanted net work days, not work days. And there's 352 net work days. And that one's a really useful function because it tells you, you know, if you're trying to calculate the number of days on a job, this is going to be a lot more useful number than 491 than trying to subtract that stuff back out. Okay, so the you also have the ability to add or subtract a number of work days. So let's do equals work days. And start date. So this is work day. Equals start date. We'll do A3 here. And I want 30 work days. And type 40. So I want 30 work days. And this is one of those examples where it just does something really stupid. Um, that doesn't look like a date to me. So just go in, format cells, date, and pick a date there. And there you go. Uh, so from January 1st of 2000, going, what did I say, 30 work days past there takes us to February 11th of 2000. So those two functions to add or subtract a number of workdays. If you want to go 50 workdays into the past, you'd actually just change this to minus, 50 workdays there. And that takes you 50 workdays into the past. That's exactly the same as just adding or subtracting the number from the date if you want every day. So it's net work days if you're comparing two dates. It's workday if you are adding or subtracting. Okay. So what about things that Excel can do with dates that make absolutely no sense whatsoever? Um, Excel just stores dates and times as simple numbers. The date is the whole number part, the time is the fractional part, and Excel can do mathematical operations on numbers. That's what Excel does. That's almost the only thing Excel does, really. So you can do all sorts of weird things. I can do equals A1 divided by B1 by A2, and it gives me a date. Does that make any sense at all? Nope. January 0th of 1900 just does not make a lot of sense to me. Um, you can multiply dates together. You can divide dates. You can add two dates, subtract two dates from each other. Well, actually, let me phrase that. You can subtract two dates, and that does make sense. That gives you the number of days between them. You can add two dates, and that makes no sense at all. Um, what it will actually give you, the day dates are the number of days since January 1st of 1900, which is one. So January 1st, 1900. So if you added January 1st, 1900 and January 2nd of 1900, you would get January 3rd of 1900 because you're adding one and two and you get three. Um, if you add January 1st of 2025 and January 2nd of 2025, you're going to get something. It's going to be what, 2150 somewhere probably, um, which really is not what you want. It makes no sense. And that's just, you have to always watch what you're doing with dates. And anytime you're working with them, just be sure to like take a look, make sure it looks like it makes sense what you're doing. Um, so these things are allowed, uh, but they often make no sense. Uh, so what else is there out there that um, is going to cause you problems with dates? The big thing that's going to cause you a problem is if you're a historian, if you're working with dates before 1900. Um, I mentioned January 1st, 1900 is one. You might then be led to believe that December 31st of 1899 would be zero or negative one or something meaningful. Negative numbers aren't supported in the date functions. So what that winds up giving you is that if you try to create a date or work with a date before 1900, uh, so if you put in uh, here 1/1/1850, it's going to be perfectly happy to accept it. But then if you try to do equals A6 plus 1, it's not going to give you anything useful because 1/1/1850 is not a number. 1/1/1850 is a text string. So that's a problem. And you can kind of see that because here, if we expand this column out a little bit, the dates automatically right justify and the text strings automatically left justify. There are ways of managing dates in the 1800s and before. Uh, Two reasons Excel doesn't do it. First, because they had to pick some place to be zero, and they just picked January 1st, 1900. Um, the second reason's a little more little more complicated. Pretty much by January 1st, 1900, the whole world pretty much agreed on the calendar we're currently using. Some countries have additional calendars, some religions have additional calendars, but kind of everyone has, everyone agrees, okay, this calendar we're going to use, and this is what it looks like, and this is when the year starts and everything. Uh, Back in the 1800s, that wasn't the case. Back in the 1800s, different countries were using different calendars. In some countries, the year started on a different day. Um, some were, Gregorian and Julian calendars were the two big ones, but there were some other ones out there as well. And countries migrated uh, at different times. There are some dates that in some calendars simply don't exist. And because of that, you get before 1900, and it gets really hard to simply do mathematical operations on dates. As I said, there are some ways of working with it. Sometime in the future, I'll make a video on this. Uh, in the meantime, if you are working with dates prior to 1900, your best bet is to store your values separately. So instead of trying to enter it like this, you would actually do 1, 1. Oh, sorry. That's the problem of having text formats. You do 1, 1, 1850, and just work with it like that. And then you can actually just concatenate those to print a date if you need to. And then you can do normal mathematical operations with it. Use integer division, link down in the description for integer division on how to keep track of all that stuff. So that's about it for date functions. Oh, one other thing you might run into. Let me show you this. So I have in A5, I have January 1st, 1900, right? So if I do equals A5 plus 10, works perfectly fine. What if I do equals A5 minus 10? It gives you that. And I'm sure everyone has seen this before. This is what it gives you if your cells are, if your data is longer than your cell. But with time functions and date functions, if you put in a value that just doesn't work, that's not representable, that's infinitely long. You can stretch that forever, it'll never change. So if you see this on a time or date function and you extend it, a couple of characters out, um, usually that means that you put in something that is a calculation error. The formula might be right, but Excel just can't work with it. Anyway, that's about it for dates. I said I have links down there for integer division if you have to do manual operations, something beyond what the automatic functions can handle. Also, sometime in the future, I'll come out with a video on working with dates prior to 1900. Not sure when that's coming out, but if you subscribe, you'll see that one. So anyway, if you learned anything from this video, please be sure to like it and subscribe to the channel and hit notify so you can see when new videos come out. We also have a Patreon channel at patreon.com/data analysis excellence. Hopefully, I will see you again soon. Thanks for stopping by.